Alright, everybody. I gotta give you a brief, very abridged history lesson here before we get into this topic, because I don't know if the video will do it. It probably will, but I want to make sure you guys are covered. You see, I have, looking back, kind of been into politics online for a long time now. 2016 is a while ago at this point. And that's when I really got invested in internet politics. And at that time, we were in the absolute critical peak of Gamergate, a time in internet culture that is, while very similar to today, really hard to explain to people who weren't there for it. Like, it wasn't like today. Yes, the right had dominated the mainstream landscape online, and everyone was saying stupid shit and believing weird bullshit just like today, but there was this level of snarky, smug, mask-on euphemism around all the radical sentiment that made it really, really hard to argue against. Because everyone would think you were crazy if you called out racism when it was obvious, because the racism that was popular to spread was so couched in hidden meaning and euphemism, it was hard to argue with and point out without looking like you were looking too deep into things, right? And so a lot of the anti-SJW movement was made up of a broad range of people. On one end, you had a group that went by, for a time, the title of skeptics. The skeptics typically fell into the range of liberal to SOCDEM to usually like centrist to rarely conservative-leaning people that did not believe in God or religion. They tended to side against fundamentalists of all kinds, of any religion, not just Christianity. A lot of these people were YouTubers who got their start criticizing evangelical Christians, and then they ended up branching out into anti-feminist content as the perception of feminism and progressive politics online got to be heavily straw-manned by just a broad cultural shift that's kind of hard to break down in a brief explanation. And everyone kind of chased the money, everyone jumped on the bandwagon, even a lot of it was just personal decisions to pursue this type of content because it was fun as well. It was what was poppin', it was what was fun, it was what was what was happening. And so the term skeptic referred to these well-meaning, but unfortunately still part of what would be looked back upon as a pretty not great movement in the end. But they meant well. A lot of the skeptics really meant well. But they did some pretty bad stuff overall. And then on the other end of things, you had your radical people. You had your Rage After Storms and your Andy Warskis and your Milo Yiannopoulos and your Richard Spencers. I guess I could think of more people if I really thought hard enough. Milo Yiannopoulos, etc. Or not Milo Yiannopoulos, Stefan Molyneux, Alex Jones, etc. You had your really radical people who were typically sanity washed by the skeptics, because their crazier and more insane tendencies were typically laughed off as just trolling or exaggeration or playing a character or good old just, I don't agree with them, but it's their freedom to act or say that act that way or say that kind of thing, you know? And so this culture persisting for years online led to a lot of people my age at the time, especially young men such as myself, including myself, getting super into this content and it inevitably influencing our politics and creating what we call the alt-right pipeline. My journey about how I fell down the alt-right pipeline is like pretty big. Like it went viral as fuck. It's got a ton of views. I think like close to, if not at 1 million maybe. It might have hit 1 million a while ago. I'm not sure. I haven't checked it in a while. But that video did really well, and it goes to show that a lot of people, especially when you read the comments, relate to it. A lot of people went through a similar experience, and I think that means something. I think that that suggests that what we're going through right now with so many people falling into conservative demagoguery, there might be a future where those people fall out of it and start publishing their own videos about how they fell into the red pill sphere and how they got out. We're not at that future yet, but I hope we get there. In the meantime, though, there is a YouTuber who is sort of the ideal of the skeptic movement. You see, the skeptics weren't all bad. They stood for a lot of good things. They were just kind of misled for the most part. Were we misled? They were misled for the most part. However, one figure who has an unfortunate association with that group, despite not having partaken in that whole, like, anti-SJW thing at the time, or at least as far as I know he didn't, and that is Genetically Modified Skeptic. He makes a lot of videos debunking conspiracy theories, religious demagoguery, evangelicals, and just misinformation and faith that goes against logic and reason and science across the board. He seems like a pretty decent guy. He is also quite clearly progressive. And just today, he put out a video that I very much want to watch with all of you. It's called The Alt-Right Pipeline Almost Got Me. Here's why it failed. There will, of course, be a link to the original video down below in the description. You should very, very much click that link and go like and comment the original video. Go leave a subscription if you enjoy it and want to see more from him. It's only fair. You should go send your support his way. I've even left a like on the video. And while you're at it, maybe consider leaving a like and a comment on my video. It does help a lot, like immensely. Seriously, I really do appreciate it from you guys. But without any further ado, let's get into this video, because we can't watch all of it due to its length and my not wanting to steal his content. So I want to give my commentary on the main thesis statement at the start of the video, I suppose. Most YouTubers start their videos with their main thesis statement. A lot of videos are formatted like college essays, and you always start with your thesis statement. Let's watch.
So you've probably noticed, I'm a young white man with a YouTube channel called Something Something Skeptic. So at my 25th birthday party, my friends and I played a game where 2 people at a time would compete to make the other person laugh exclusively by insulting them. And the very first line dropped on me was, "Drew, you named your YouTube channel Genetically Modified Skeptic." Yeah, he had that one in the chamber before we started playing, I'm sure. I was raised conservative Christian. I became an atheist at 21 years old. Quickly got into watching atheist YouTube in 2016, then made my own atheist YouTube channel, and within a couple years became one of the larger channels in that space. So how the fuck did I not get fully pulled into the alt-right? A quick reminder, I'll be at the American...
I'm glad I gave that background, because I feel like what he's saying here kind of references that time in history, assuming you knew about it and you were there for it. To be clear, if you were in any way watching political, like atheist commentary, drama, or online like gossip news content, that entire culture, the it culture, the culture of the platform, was the skeptic community. It was making fun of SJWs and feminists and PC culture, and that was the place at the time. That was the web space at the time. I cannot stress it enough. So when he talks about how were you a skeptic and super into atheist content and you didn't fall down the alt-right pipeline, it's because, like, that's why. The alt-right pipeline was everywhere. If you were into these things, it was gunning for you. It was trying to radicalize you. And it was successful at it for a lot of people.
American Atheist National...
Oh, and of course I almost forgot to mention, if you were also into gaming, of course. The gaming community and some of its biggest commentators, of course, regularly dipped their toes into criticizing the supposed corruptness of progressive gaming journalists and Anita Sarkeesian, etc., etc.
Convention in Minneapolis, Minnesota, April 17th through the 20th. Get your tickets now through the link in the description to come hang out with me, Taylor, and some other atheist YouTubers you probably know. So my focus in this video stems from my understanding that the alt-right pipeline operates primarily on 2 factors: appeals to male grievances and algorithmic radicalization. Basically, that the alt-right draws its power from men resenting something or someone and attracts many of these men through a pipeline of increasingly inflammatory online content. What I'll do here then is tell some stories that shed light on why I didn't develop various male grievances and how that affected the way I interacted with alt-right online content as a younger adult.
God is dead, and I'm gay. Hi, everybody.
Here's one my mom always loved to tell about me. Apparently, when I was 3, my family visited my grandparents' house, and while my grandpa and I were playing, he said something about teaching me to wrestle. I famously replied, "Papa, I'm a lover, not a fighter." And the women in the room thought that was adorable, while the men sighed in disappointment. Personally, I like that story, and yeah, I'd say that still basically describes me accurately. A couple years later, I made...
Why is that little boy not wanting to fight? Something ain't right about that boy.
That really is kind of a good example of the kind of social like if you're like a cis woman, you don't really have a experiential reference for the kind of social pressures men face, and so getting just like a peek to the other side of the of the pasture, I guess, is always good because it expands your understanding. And that's a good example of the kind of social pressure, because we all know we talk a lot about the social pressures that women and girls are put through from a young age, and this is a good example of what young boys deal with. Is like, if you come off as like not tough enough, like you will feel like you're disappointing every male role model you have in your life, and that's a strong negative emotion to feel. It's a strong, unintended maybe, punishment for expressing yourself in a certain way, and that very much does mold and shape the way that boys grow into men and how they end up.
My first best friend, a very cool and very smart girl from my church, and we stayed best friends until I moved churches at 11 years old. A lot of my other friends were girls too. I can't remember any reason for this other than I liked hanging out with them more, and in almost all cases, that didn't have anything to do with having crushes on them. Throughout my childhood, I was bullied, physically and verbally, for being small. I'm 5'8" today, not tall, but not that short, but I grew very slowly, like very, very slowly. So kids would pick on me for that pretty often. When I first went into my church youth group at 12, boys and adult men started bullying me for another new reason. I was too feminine. Why are you sitting like that? Sit like a man. Don't talk like that. Why don't you like football? What's wrong with you? Oh, rollerblading is so gay. Pick a real sport. You know, you're really scrawny. Your wrists look like a girl. Your eyes look like a girl. And every one of my friend's dad's favorite, you need to cut your hair. You look like a girl. I didn't have long hair. I have decidedly left out homophobic slurs here, but I assure you, I was called them. I usually talk to my parents when this happened, so all the time, and they taught me that bullying behavior stems from the insecurity of the bullies. I didn't deserve that treatment because of something I did. The bullies were hurt, scared, self-hating, had...
That's usually true when you're an adult. Like, when adults give advice to kids about bullies, it's like, yeah, that's true when you're an adult. Like, if an adult, when you're a adult and you go to work and you have a workplace bully, that person is definitely the saddest, most insecure person you will have ever met. And everything that, like, you hear about bullies is totally true about adult bullies, yes. Because that is a very sad thing to do as a grown man or woman, to be, like, a bully, you know? But when you're a kid, kids are just assholes, dude. Like, scientifically speaking, kids are cruel monsters and mentally underdeveloped to the point where they are incapable of empathy in many cases. Or, I shouldn't say they're incapable of empathy. They are capable of empathy, and many kids do display empathy. I should say that they do not have empathy skills developed to the same extent that most adults do. And let's be clear, most adults have not developed their skills in empathy nearly enough. So yeah, kids are cruel and they bully. It's the standard. And the advice that most parents give about that is always so wrong. And I feel like every kid knows that, right? It's like, no, they're not bullying because they're insecure, or maybe that's a factor, but it's not the main reason. They're bullying because they're stronger and I'm weaker. And they've targeted me and I can't do shit about it, and it's fun for them. That's why they're doing it. And that's 99% of the time why a bully bullies you. I just always think it's funny when you hear, like, a parent say, they're doing it because they're insecure. No, they're doing it because it's fun and they can.
Something to compensate for, and they treated me badly to make themselves feel strong and superior for once. This is basically true, and it was a great lesson for my parents. Internalizing that has been an overall good for me. It prepared me for when Christian guys like John from What Do You Meme, David Wood, Kwaku, Cameron Bertuzzi of Capturing Christianity started mocking me for my appearance, and John even dressed up as me and did a homophobic lisping voice for a video. I don't know what to tell you guys. If you are struck by my overwhelming femininity to the point that you have to use your ministry to comment on it, maybe there's a journey that you need to take. Like, you see features in me that you enjoy in women, and that's a problem? I mean, a problem for who, really?
Scared, Daddy?
In fact, there are a lot of men that watch my channel that tell me that I'm pretty, and honestly, that's flattering. You could just be among them if you want. Anyway, as a teenager, one of the ways I avoided the bullying was to sit out some stereotypically masculine activities and make friends with girls instead. All of my close friends have heard me describe this particular scene before. At youth group on Wednesday nights, we'd play a game in the church gym before the sermon. When the game was dodgeball, most of the girls would sit on the bleachers and talk instead of playing. A lot of the time, the guys got really aggressive. I would often join them, and...
Listen, that's one thing I can never relate to, is like in movies when like the nerdy character who's like scrawny or whatever is like, oh no, dodgeball. I fucking love dodgeball. Dodgeball is one of the games of all time, in my opinion. When dodgeball was the game, like that was the game I was crossing my fingers hoping we'd be playing when we had PE or gym class or anything like that. Dodgeball is a fucking blast, dude. Maybe it's because I'm fast and I'm good at dodging and I just love, like, just smacking someone dead on target with a ball. Maybe it's just because I'm good at it. But, like, I never got that. Whenever a character in a movie is like, ugh, dodgeball, I'm like, what are you talking about? You lucked out! It's dodgeball day! I never could relate.
Would be the only guy not to play most of the time. Again, this meant I made friends with girls. I had several guy friends, but I always had close friendships with girls too. Now, just as plenty of full-grown men do, the boys in my youth group saw female attention as a sign of masculine attractiveness, of manhood. But then, when these boys saw that I spent more time with girls than they did, because girls were nicer
Remember, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
to me, they said it was because I was a girl. I was too feminine for true manhood. All of these experiences got the wheels turning in my teenage brain. I started to see these purposely, overtly masculine men and boys as people who dogmatically hold themselves and others to an arbitrary standard of masculinity. They do this because they've seen other men impose ridiculous standards of masculinity on others. They feel insecure about their ability to meet those standards, so they attempt to conform and belittle those who don't as a way to manage their negative feelings resulting from their insecure sense of masculinity. Basically, the aesthetic performance of masculinity, or
It's less so that they feel insecure about their masculinity. I've found, okay, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a giga-masculine guy, but generally I'd say that, like, in my interests and in my general, like, activities, I'm fairly masculine. Like, a lot of friends that I have are male but not super masculine, and I don't relate to them on a lot of things. Like, for example, here where he's like, I didn't like playing dodgeball. I'm like, I fucking love dodgeball. I've always been super into sports despite being nerdy, or at least the sports that I'm into: swimming, fighting sports like grappling, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, even MMA, so like a bit of sport, like actual striking as well I've done. I like physical activity, I like sports, and I'm also kind of a nerdy, smaller guy. So not smaller in height, but scrawnier. And so, like, I don't know, I've never related there. But I can kind of see that, like, as someone who's got some more masculine tendencies, in the past, when I was more chuddy, would engage in these behaviors, where I would belittle other guys if they behaved in ways that I found feminine. And to tell you the truth, it wasn't because I felt insecure about my masculinity in that department or in other ways. It was because, to me, the best way to compare it is cringe. We all try not to socially destroy ourselves by doing something embarrassing. We are all in agreement that we should all try not to do something like that, because it subjects us and everyone else around us to either embarrassment or secondhand embarrassment. And so as a man, you spend so much of your life socially conditioned to maximize your masculine vibes that when you meet a guy who doesn't do that, it makes you cringe. It feels like you've met someone who is blatantly violating a social contract that you're not supposed to violate, and it imparts a feeling of negativity on you, and the vibe makes you feel as though it makes you feel like you're supposed to impart some kind of social punishment in the form of ridicule or mockery. That's the way I felt when I engaged in those behaviors. I can't speak for everyone. Maybe you can comment down below when this goes out as its own video, like how that worked for you if you ever behaved that way. But I'm curious if any other guys in chat relate in this way, or if your mindset behind it is different. I agree with that to a point, but very often thinking that I shouldn't talk to her, I'll just be cringe and I'll just be creepy, is a self-defeating discussion that can keep you from socializing. I think you're talking to someone else then, because I don't think that was directed at me. I don't know. Anyway, I think that's what motivates a lot of that, like, male-on-male belittlement over perceived femininity. And of course, fundamentally, by the way, this cannot go without saying, so much of the insults and negative comments and the smarm directed at men for not being masculine enough is usually framing femininity as a bad thing. Femininity is bad. Femininity is something that you should be ashamed of because woman bad is sort of the implicit thing there. Now, to be fair, most of those people defend themselves by saying, no, it's just bad for men to be feminine. It's good for women to be feminine is what they'd argue. But nonetheless, I think that still has some implications that are worth acknowledging, right? Like the obvious implication is femininity is bad, right?
Maybe better put, a hyperfixation on the aesthetic performance of masculinity, in my mind, my teenage mind, was often linked to non-physical forms of personal weakness. Lack of grounded sense of self, lack of moral character, lack of intelligence sometimes. Not always, of course. I've known masculine people who are not that way, obviously, but they always give off a very different vibe right away. This lesson would prove impactful.
So join us, and together we'll end women.
Armored Skeptic.
What's that?
Here we go.
Fast
This is the
forward to
part I'm here
2016.
for.
I'm a baby atheist who just started watching Skeptic and Atheist YouTube. After watching enough Armored Skeptic, I ended up with the vague idea that feminism might be going too far. I thought, maybe this whole anti-SJW thing that I've been hearing about has some merit. So I quite deliberately decided to check out this anti-SJW thing by watching some Thunderfoot videos about feminist SJWs, particularly against BuzzFeed feminists, I guess they...
Gotta keep in mind, by the way, Thunderfoot's chill today. I've heard some complaints about him, but he seems like he makes mostly just videos focused on calling Elon a fraud and exposing him as a fraud, and he's been doing it for like 4 years now. Like 5 years now, maybe. But anyway, Thunderfoot, I need you to understand, as like a 15, 16, or 17-year-old on YouTube during 2016 in the anti-SJW era, Thunderfoot was like the professor. Obviously, like, Jordan Peterson was the professor, but like Thunderfoot had this academic background that, especially to someone who's younger, lends a level of credibility that is insane for a YouTuber to have. Thunderfoot was seen as the scientist YouTuber, and he's an anti-SJW. In the same way that, like, someone like Bill Nye talking about global warming being a big deal and being progressive, like, when a science educator is progressive, that helps us to, like, it almost validates our views in a way. In that same way, Thunderfoot, as like an academic, being an anti-SJW, made us as little chudlings feel like there was... It validated our opinions. It made us feel like there was a certain level of professional validation and confirmation of what we believed that was undeniable. and it strengthened the resolve of a lot of anti-SJW people, who most of us, and I say us because at the time I was one of those people, most of us were teenagers, to be clear.
They called them back then, and the supposedly awful Anita Sarkeesian. And dear God. Okay, the main thing I remember about this experience was I was driving, came to a stop, put on one of these videos to listen to, plugged into the aux, very quickly heard him just call a woman a bitch as his main argument. I made a face and then just continued to drive with that face stuck that way for the remaining 8 minutes or whatever of the video. Yeah, it was an instantly regrettable experience. Pretty immediately, I saw that Thunderfoot did the same thing that the men and boys that bullied me had done. He mocked feminine people and presented himself as more rational, even though his arguments were not rational at all. The idea that he was, in fact, more logical than these feminists ultimately relied on his male audience just presuming that he was, because he's a man, and that his emotional outbursts were not cringy rants like the feminists did, but were instead frank and logical refutations of irrationality, because deep voice and facial hair means that argument better. This was effectively an argument from aesthetics, and as I engaged with anti-SJW content further, I saw that it was primarily an aesthetic performance of both gender norms and intellectual superiority.
This is fundamental, and I think something a lot of people are going to have to realize before they shake themselves out of the propaganda wave we're currently in. A lot of it is aesthetics. Look at Matt Walsh. Look at, well, really any conservative pundit, and everything is aesthetic branding, from their rhetoric to their appearances and their performances. Brett Cooper is a great example of someone whose entire internet personality was clearly written in a scriptwriter's room. And now that she's not part of Daily Wire, she's just continuing the act on her own to massive success and millions of subscribers. But still, look at any conservative pundit. They're all playing a character, and it's all about the aesthetics that they're trying to put forward because they are a walking advertisement for conservatism.
Which was ultimately void of substance. Dark Matter 2525 made an excellent video about how he stopped being anti-woke and included an incredible segment about this exact thing. You've got to watch that video.
You've all seen this image.
Are we in like a new age of making videos about this topic? Maybe I should make like a remaster to the alt-right pipeline video. I'm better at video editing and production script writing now. And I could probably just kind of like give a little feedback on how it relates to the state of politics today. Yeah, do it. Go for it. It'd do numbers. I love that. I guess I could. It could be an idea. Who knows? Maybe I'll do it. I won't promise that I'll do it, but I might.
This is the face of a billion thumbnails, still used on uploads and memes to this day.
I hope he's about to tell the story behind that face. I bring this face up so often. I bring it up so fucking often because this right here might be one of the best examples of the lie that was the aesthetics-driven alt-right movement and the anti-SJW movement back then. Let's see if he tells the backstory here so I don't have to.
Still used on uploads and memes to this day. Have you ever seen the source material? It's quite short.
If there's not rapists coming into, just because they're refugees doesn't mean they're fucking rapists. And because they're raping people in Germany. My parents are immigrants. My fucking parents are immigrants. No, not even a fucking big percentage. Tiny. Get raped. You know how many?
One in every 3
Fuck
women.
ton, a fuck ton.
All-American.
That's a crisis. There's a rape crisis. Exactly.
This woman did not get triggered or belligerent. She was the only one in the argument actually offering statistics rather than emotions. But there's one frame in which she made a funny face. Now, her entire existence is encapsulated by that. That's how absurd the anti-SJW movement became when they sought offense.
Getting bullied in the way I was often pushes young men toward the alt-right or anti-woke or whatever you want to call it because it causes them immense...
He told the story, but there you go. That image, like if you look up Triggered right now and go to Google Images, you'll see 50 results with that face on it in just a few scroll strokes, I think. the right is really good, and has been for over a decade now, at taking so much as a screenshot of a funny face a progressive made one time, and eternalizing it as a meme to strawman someone, or just an entire movement, right? That woman did nothing wrong and didn't do anything that should have made the left look bad, but they still found a way to do it. And not just that, but it lasted. It left a scar on the internet where, to this day, that face is used to politically influence people to the right, even now. Is this where the sport of triggering the libs came from? That image is if you could narrow it down to 3 things that popularized the triggered thing as a thing online, it would be that face, Triggerlypuff, which if you don't know what that is, if Hypers in chat if you don't know what Triggerlypuff is, and no, I'm not talking about the Pokemon. I need to know if there are people here who are not... I need to know if there are people... What the fuck is that? I remember. No. Alright. This is an old campus reform video from 8 years ago.
What Milo meant to say, what I'm going to explain, you will be pleased. What Milo meant to say is that feminism, while being a noble and valiant, courageous movement, there are certain schools of thought that are somewhat unwholesome. Right, Milo?
No, I meant it was canceled.
Milo Yiannopoulos is on stage, by the way. Who's a Nazi?
All right, I am here to provide some adult supervision. Calm down, young lady. The correct word for contemporary third wave campus feminism is not cancer, but madness. Utter madness. No, listen, this is very important. Future historians are going to look back at what... Excluding true women of color!
You got the chuds in the front there.
Future generations will look back...
One more disruption and we'd have to ask you to leave the venue.
My free speech! No, they're not. You have to obey the rules of the venue. But this is free speech if you're so concerned. Not free speech!
Please keep your comments to the Q&A section.
Keep your hate speech out of this campus!
Keep your hate speech out of this campus! Keep your hate speech out of this campus!
Here it is.
Keep your hate speech out of this campus! Utter madness!
So yeah, that's the Triggerlypuff video. This upload alone isn't even the original. It's from 8 years ago, and this happened over 10, and it has 3.4 million views. So the right had a very, very sensitive finger on the pulse of internet culture and was really good at getting shit like that, like the most embarrassing examples, even if they had to manufacture them, like with the triggered face. The most embarrassing examples that could be used to strawman the left, they would make giga-viral. They're doing it still today. Their methods have just altered somewhat, but that's what they did. And I cannot emphasize enough the reach and influence that these memes had. I know it sounds silly, but I guess less so now. But back then, the idea of memes that had political influence was a very silly suggestion no one would take seriously. Nowadays, I feel people are a lot more open to that.
Pain and tells them that the only way to cope is to become a posturing masculine bully yourself. I was fortunate enough to have people in my life to help me find another path early on, and that eventually acted as a sort of inoculation against this particular type of right-wing radicalization. On top of all this, sometime in 2016 or early 2017, I heard Armored Skeptic discuss why he and other creators shifted away from talking about religion and toward discussing hot-button political issues. The gist was there's only so much to talk about with religion. We've done it all, and now we have to move on to something that's more relevant. As someone who grew up super religious, who had their entire being consumed by religion at times, I thought that was an incredibly ignorant take. Like, no, Greg, you, Sargon, Thunderfoot, the Four Horsemen, did not say everything there is to say about religion in like 10 books and 200 YouTube videos. That just shows how little you actually know about the subject and or how little creativity you really possess. Even I can think of 1,000 topics you haven't covered.
I also, at the time, was not a big fan of the fact these YouTubers were refocusing deliberately more on attacking the left instead of the evangelical Christians they'd started out focusing on, because, and they would say this out loud, that they'd been bored. They'd been gotten bored with attacking right-wing Christians and wanted to refresh things. And it just felt that felt empty to me. That was one of the things that kind of made me go, maybe this movement isn't 100% sincere. But it took a lot to shake my resolve, nonetheless.
Covered well. Maybe I should start a YouTube channel about that. I came across a comment under that video addressing Greg that said something along the lines of, let's be real, you guys know that videos that make people angry get views. So when you found a topic that makes men angrier than even religion does, you changed up your content to make more money. That resonated with me. I realized somehow for the first time that YouTubers obviously make content decisions based on views, based on ad revenue. So not only did anti-SJW content contain horrible arguments based on aesthetics and arbitrary gender norms usually.
As a YouTuber, sometimes you gotta just accept that a video, while you're making it, you're like, this is not gonna do well, but I just want to make it. I want to make this, but I know it's not going to do well. I damn well know it's not going to do well. And you don't even bother checking the stats on it because you know it's not going to do well. But you're just like, I just wanted to make that. A lot of topics I cover are exactly that. Like when I cover anything to do with Gaza, I know I don't even bother to check the stats on it. I know it's not going to do well. A, YouTube's not going to promote it a lot. And B, my take on the Israel-Gaza stuff is not sensationalist enough to please most people online who have an opinion on it. So only like people who are like, yeah, the genocide of Palestinians is bad. I don't think Israel should be wiped off the face of the earth for it, though. People with that opinion are the only people that are going to watch my takes on that. And that is unfortunately the minority online these days, because half the internet either wants to genocide all Palestinians and like the other half wants to genocide all Jews in Israel, and there is a small sliver that I occupy of the less radical perspective on things, the two-state solution side. And so, yeah, like there are just certain topics on global warming and climate change. It's like, I care about this. I know it's not going to pull any views, but fuck it. I care, so I'm going to talk about it. But yeah, like YouTubers, like they gotta focus on getting the views, and that's what these creators did. But it didn't feel like they were. I think for a lot of people, and for me especially, when it came to people like No Bullshit, for instance, who is a massive. If you don't know who No Bullshit is, don't look into it. You're better off not knowing. If you do, then you know what I'm talking about. When I encountered No Bullshit and became familiar with his content and what he was about, I quickly learned how insincere the movement was because of how No Bullshit was doing what everyone else was doing, but so badly. And he was so bad at covering up the grift that it became obvious what everyone else was doing.
But it was also made to stir up anger so that content creators could get more views. Anti-SJW content then was a money-making scheme, not good faith content about skepticism and critical thought. Naturally, I tried to avoid it from that point on.
The future is utterly bleak. Everybody dies. Life is rough.
I really do want to watch the rest of this video, but I'm not going to be able to do it on stream because I don't want to steal the content. And we're running out of time for this segment. It's getting long. But hey, If you enjoyed this segment, if you found my reaction to this video and my commentary educational, entertaining, or in any way enjoyable, then please consider leaving a like and a comment on the stream and the video if you're watching this after the fact. It really, really helps a lot. Every thumbs up and comment is like a little electric shock to the YouTube algorithm that forces it to push my stuff out to new people and grow my channel, so I really do appreciate it. Remember, it only takes a second and it's totally free, so if you haven't done it already, please consider it. It really means a lot. And of course, if you're new here and you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future, because if you don't, trust me, they won't. And finally, if you want to see more, not finally, but also if you want to see more stuff from me on other platforms, you should follow my social medias linked down below in the description, especially my fan Discord, the main hub of my community and fan base. In fact, I'll actually be hosting gaming events, watch parties, movie nights, and call-in streams in the future, as well as I've been doing it for a while now, but as well as in the future. Tomorrow I'll be hosting a watch party of either The Walking Dead or The Boys. We're going to be voting on it when we get in there, so make sure you join and you're sticking around and you join the watch party so you get your say in. You can hang out with us. It's always a blast when we do these watch parties. I hope to see you there. And don't forget, finally, if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, and you feel like it, then consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below in the description if you feel like it. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you so much for watching as always, and I hope you have a good one.